Imagine waking up to find a single mistake, one keystroke, one miscalculation, that cost 20 million, but made one man a legend. Not through luck, not through gambling, but through calm, ruthless precision. This is not a fairy tale about fortune. It's the story of discipline meeting chaos. The moment when the markets panicked and one man, Takashi Kotegawa, turned fear into fortune. When chaos strikes, most people freeze. They look at the red numbers flashing across their screens and feel their heartbeat sync with the panic of the crowd. They hear the noise, the shouts, the fear, the disbelief, and they act like everyone else. But the truth is, chaos doesn't create opportunities for everyone. It only reveals the ones who were ready before it came. Takashi Kotegawa was ready. When Japan's market trembled under the weight of a 20 million trading error, thousands saw disaster. Kotegawa saw the same scene, but through a different lens, a sharper one carved from years of obsession, failure, and study. The difference between him and the masses wasn't intelligence, it was preparation. He had spent years training his mind to stay steady when everyone else drowned in emotion. He lived a life of simplicity, not out of poverty, but by choice. No luxury, no distraction, just focus. He knew that when chaos finally came, and it always does, it would test not the market, but the mind. Every panic wave in the market is a psychological exam, and the unprepared always fail. Kotegawa passed because he had rehearsed that exam every single day in silence. While others read news headlines and chased rumors, he read the psychology of movement. How a price spike triggers greed, how a sudden fall ignites fear, how traders turn into gamblers when uncertainty rises. He understood that chaos was never random. It was the purest form of human behavior exposed in numbers. So when Mizuho's error sent shockwaves across Japan, Kotegawa didn't see lines and digits. He saw emotion made visible. He knew exactly how the crowd would respond: sell first, think later. That predictability was his advantage. Preparedness in chaos isn't about knowing the future, it's about knowing yourself. Kotegawa didn't know the market would make that specific mistake. He didn't predict the 20 million loss. But he knew that one day panic would come, and when it did, he had promised himself not to blink. It was that mental contract, signed long before the crisis, that made him move when everyone else froze. Preparation isn't built in the moment of crisis. It's built in the quiet hours of practice when nobody's watching. He had trained his instincts to replace fear with logic, and hesitation with execution. In trading, milliseconds can separate legends from losers. But those milliseconds aren't about speed. They're about readiness. Kotegawa's calmness wasn't spontaneous. It was conditioned. Each day he studied charts not just to read them, but to feel them. He observed how markets breathe, how they inhale confidence and exhale fear. So when that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity came, he didn't need to think. Thinking is slow. He simply acted because his preparation had already written the script. The unprepared see chaos as noise. The prepared hear rhythm. In that rhythm, Kotegawa found his advantage. While the Tokyo Stock Exchange drowned in confusion, he quietly moved capital, buying undervalued stocks that others were discarding in blind fear. He knew that once the mistake was corrected, the rebound would be swift. And it was. In hours, the very same stocks that had collapsed in panic began to recover. The masses who sold in fear watched from the sidelines. Kotegawa, who entered calmly, exited with millions. But his victory wasn't measured in yen alone. It was a spiritual proof that preparation conquers chaos. Every moment of his discipline had led him here. Every late night spent studying market reactions. Every loss he dissected to understand his own weakness. The 20 million mistake was never really about the market's error. It was about one man's readiness to exploit it. That's what separates winners from watchers. Preparation turns uncertainty into opportunity. When people later asked him how he did it, Kotegawa didn't talk about luck or instinct. He spoke about control, discipline, and patience. He said that chaos is not the enemy, panic is. Chaos simply shows who has trained long enough to remain composed when others lose themselves. He understood that in the world of markets and life, storms don't destroy the prepared mind, they define it. That's the lesson hidden behind the 20 million mistake. The market will always tremble, the crowd will always overreact, and opportunities will always hide behind fear. But only those who have built their calm in silence will recognize them when they appear. Preparation doesn't make chaos disappear. It just makes you immune to it. Takashi Kotegawa proved that the moment you stop fearing the storm and start studying it, the chaos stops being your enemy and becomes your greatest teacher. In the end, chaos didn't make Kotegawa rich. It simply revealed what years of quiet discipline had already created. A mind sharper than panic, calmer than noise, and ready when the world wasn't. Fear is the most powerful force in the market. It moves faster than logic, louder than analysis, and deeper than numbers. When fear takes over, people stop thinking. They start reacting. In that instant, charts become irrelevant, and emotions become the new economy. That's when true traders, the rare ones, step in. Takashi Kotegawa understood this better than anyone. He knew that when fear floods the market, prices don't just fall, value becomes distorted, and opportunity hides inside that distortion. When the 20 million Mizuho mistake sent shockwaves through Japan's financial world, every screen turned red. Traders shouted, phones rang, and decisions were made in panic. It wasn't a normal day. It was chaos measured in yen. Yet, for Kotegawa, it was the perfect scenario. While others drowned in fear, he sat in silence, observing the madness like a scientist watching an experiment he already knew the outcome of. He didn't fight fear. He waited for it to run its course. Because he knew something fundamental: fear sells faster than reason buys. In that single truth lies the greatest edge any investor can have. The market is not moved by data alone. It's moved by psychology. People fear losing more than they desire winning. That's why, when panic hits, the prices of good companies collapse alongside the bad. The market doesn't discriminate during a crisis. It just bleeds. And it's in that moment, when logic evaporates, that Kotegawa made his move. He didn't buy randomly. He bought selectively. He searched for solid fundamentals that had been unfairly crushed by mass hysteria. To him, every irrational sell order was a gift from fear itself. Most traders run from red candles. Kotegawa walked toward them. He knew that every deep red chart carried the fingerprints of human panic. And human panic is predictable. He often said that the market isn't a battlefield of numbers, it's a battlefield of emotions. The strongest don't win because they have more money. They win because they have more control. And control begins where fear ends. But understanding fear isn't about ignoring it. Kotegawa never claimed to be fearless. He simply mastered the art of respecting fear without obeying it. He felt it, analyzed it, and turned it into data. Every time his pulse quickened, he didn't run. He listened. Because fear, when studied carefully, tells you what everyone else is about to do. It reveals the next wave before it forms. It shows where the weak hands will sell and where the strong minds will enter. That's why, during the Mizuho incident, when everyone was desperate to sell and escape, Kotegawa was quietly accumulating. He wasn't reckless. He was rational in an irrational world. He had trained himself to detach from the noise, to see beyond emotion, to treat panic like a market indicator rather than a threat. For him, fear was a measurement, a signal that the market was out of balance. And where there's imbalance, there's profit. The masses often believe that the smartest traders win, but Kotegawa's story proves otherwise. It's not intelligence that conquers markets. It's composure. Intelligence may help you read the numbers, but composure helps you survive them. In that moment of fear, thousands of smart people lost millions because they couldn't control their emotions. Meanwhile, one man, calm and unshaken, transformed collective panic into personal gain. Fear creates chaos, and chaos creates liquidity, movement, opportunity, and noise. Kotegawa thrived in that noise because he understood its rhythm. To him, the market was alive, breathing in greed, exhaling fear. And when the exhale became violent, when everyone else gasped for air, that's when he took his deepest breath. He bought into the fear because he knew it was temporary. He understood that the same hands that sold in panic would one day buy back in regret. He didn't have to fight them. He just had to wait for the fear to exhaust itself. Fear has always been the market's greatest currency because it's universal. Every trader feels it. Every investor is vulnerable to it. But few learn how to profit from it. Takashi Kotegawa did. He turned fear into opportunity by mastering patience, observation, and detachment. He didn't gamble, he calculated. He didn't chase, he waited. While the world screamed, he listened to silence. Because silence, in the middle of fear, is the sound of clarity. And that's why, when the storm passed and the market corrected itself, his calm became profit. The very emotion that destroyed others became his greatest ally. That's the paradox Kotegawa lived by. Fear destroys the unprepared but enriches the disciplined. In the end, his success wasn't born from luck or timing. It came from understanding one eternal law of the market and of life. Fear controls the many, but it empowers the few who dare to study it. And when fear becomes your teacher, every crash becomes your classroom, and every panic a chance to rise. In the world of trading, intelligence is common, emotional control is not. The market is filled with smart people who can analyze data, read charts, and calculate probabilities, yet most of them still lose. Why? Because when emotion enters the room, intelligence quietly leaves. Takashi Kotegawa understood this better than anyone. His success wasn't built on superior knowledge, but on superior self-mastery. He wasn't the loudest, the fastest, or the richest. He was simply the calmest. When the market collapsed during Japan's 20 million mistake, thousands of traders had access to the same information Kotegawa did. They saw the same numbers, the same opportunity, the same chaos. But while they panicked, he executed. What separated him wasn't intellect, it was control. He didn't let emotion cloud his judgment, even for a second. He knew that one emotional decision could destroy years of discipline. So he didn't think about profit or loss. He thought about execution. His focus was razor-sharp, stripped of excitement, greed, or fear. Emotional control in trading isn't about being emotionless. It's about mastering your responses. Kotegawa felt fear, but he didn't act on it. He felt greed, but he didn't chase it. He recognized both as traps that seduce traders into self-destruction. The market's greatest trick is to convince you that you're making logical choices, when, in truth, you're reacting emotionally. Every spike in price feeds greed. Every drop feeds panic. Most traders ride these emotional waves until they drown. Kotegawa watched them from the shore, patient and detached. He often said that intelligence builds the plan, but emotion decides the outcome. A brilliant strategy is useless if your mind can't stay steady when it's tested. That's why Kotegawa didn't rely on genius. He relied on consistency. He studied not just the market, but himself. Every trade, whether profitable or not, became a mirror showing him his own emotional weaknesses. Did he feel nervous when the price dropped? Did he get excited too soon? Did he hesitate when he knew he was right? He treated his emotions like data points, learning from them until they became predictable, manageable, and quiet. That quiet mind was his weapon. In trading, silence is strength. The market screams with opinions, news, and predictions, but Kotegawa's calm created clarity. While others chased headlines, he focused on patterns. While others sought excitement, he sought precision. He understood that real power isn't in reacting, it's in resisting the urge to react. Every time he resisted emotion, he built invisible capital, mental capital, that paid greater dividends than any single trade. There's a reason why Kotegawa never behaved like a gambler, even when surrounded by risk. To him, trading wasn't a game of chance. It was a test of discipline. The market rewards those who can delay reaction, who can see through the fog of panic and wait for truth to reappear. Intelligence can tell you what to do, but emotional control decides when to do it. And timing is everything. That's why, during moments of chaos, most traders lose not because their analysis is wrong, but because their emotions hijack their process. They buy too soon, sell too late, or freeze when they should act. Kotegawa did the opposite. His calm allowed him to execute plans exactly as he designed them. He understood that the brain works against you under pressure, whispering lies like, "It's too risky," or "You're about to lose everything." He learned to silence that voice. He trusted data, not fear. Emotional control also protected him from greed, the twin brother of fear. After his major success, he didn't let victory turn into arrogance. He knew that after every high, the market tests your humility. That's why he kept living simply, eating cup noodles and maintaining the same discipline that made him rich. To him, success wasn't about the money, it was about the mastery. If fear makes you sell too early, greed makes you buy too late. Both destroy discipline. Only control can balance them. Kotegawa's story isn't just a trading lesson, it's a life lesson. Intelligence can open doors, but emotion can slam them shut. Every field, business, art, leadership, demands the same principle. Your greatest battles are fought within, not outside. The ones who win are not those who know the most, but those who remain calm when their world starts shaking. So when the market turned chaotic and millions were lost in panic, Kotegawa stood still, not because he was fearless, but because he was trained. He mastered himself before he mastered money. His calm became his strategy, his discipline became his defense, and his composure became his power. In the end, Takashi Kotegawa proved that emotional control isn't just a trading skill. It's the highest form of intelligence. Because when emotions burn through the market like wildfire, only those who stay cool enough to see through the smoke can find the gold hidden within. Luck is a word people use when they don't understand preparation. They see someone succeed in an extraordinary way, and because they can't explain it, they call it luck. But in reality, what looks like luck is often the residue of endless practice, quiet study, and mental conditioning. Takashi Kotegawa's story is the perfect example of this truth. When Japan's 20 million trading era sent shockwaves through the market, people called him lucky. The man who seized the right opportunity at the right time. But they didn't see the years of isolation, study, and obsession that made that lucky moment possible. Kotegawa didn't win because he was in the right place at the right time. He won because he was ready when that moment appeared. For years before the Mizuho incident, he lived a life of almost monastic simplicity. No distractions, no luxury, no parties. His room was bare except for his computer, monitors, and a few essentials. While others spent their nights chasing comfort, he spent his chasing patterns. He watched how stocks behaved during fear, how volume surged before rebounds, how investor psychology repeated itself like a cycle of seasons. Every day was a lesson. Every mistake was an experiment. He wasn't waiting for luck. He was building readiness. The markets don't announce opportunities, they whisper them. And those whispers can only be heard by minds trained to listen. Kotegawa trained his instincts until they became tools sharper than analysis itself. He could sense a turning point not through intuition, but through recognition of patterns he had seen hundreds of times in his lonely hours of study. So when Mizuho Securities made the catastrophic error, selling 610,000 shares at 1 yen instead of 1 share at 610,000 yen, the world saw chaos. But Kotegawa's preparation recognized structure inside that chaos. He didn't need time to think. His reaction was automatic, precise, and calm. That's what real preparation does. It eliminates hesitation. People who depend on luck hesitate because they rely on chance. People who depend on preparation act with clarity Because they've rehearsed chaos before it happens. Kotegawa's so-called luck was built from repetition. He had seen volatility, panic, and irrational selling countless times on smaller scales. Each time, he studied the behavior, how long fear lasted. When confidence returned, how volume patterns shifted. Those micro lessons became his mental blueprint. When the macro crisis arrived, his mind recognized the rhythm instantly. It wasn't new to him. It was just larger, louder, faster, but still predictable. That's the hidden truth about mastery. The extraordinary is just the ordinary done consistently for long enough. Kotegawa didn't need a miracle. He needed a trigger. Preparation made him dangerous in moments where others were blind. While the masses searched for explanations, he was already acting. His trades weren't guesses. They were the execution of strategies built long before the opportunity appeared. That's not luck. That's architecture. Luck might open the door once, but preparation decides whether you can walk through it. Many traders saw the same event Kotegawa did, but they didn't have the mental or technical readiness to act on it. They hesitated. They questioned. They doubted. Kotegawa didn't. His hands moved with certainty because his mind had already walked that path 1,000 times before. He didn't need to feel confident. He was prepared enough to trust the process. The market rewards preparation because it's the only thing that can withstand uncertainty. You can't predict every move, but you can prepare for how you'll respond. That's what Kotegawa mastered. Not the future, but his own reaction to it. He built systems in his mind. When chaos hits, buy value. When panic peaks, stay silent. When noise rises, lower your emotions. His preparation wasn't just analytical, it was psychological. He prepared not just his strategy, but his state of mind. That's why he stayed composed while billions of yen evaporated around him. Preparation builds calm. When you've seen enough storms, you stop fearing thunder. Kotegawa knew that panic is temporary, but discipline is eternal. And in that eternal discipline lies the true difference between luck and legacy. In the aftermath of his success, the media called him Japan's trading prodigy, the man who turned a market blunder into millions. But Kotegawa never claimed genius. He simply said he was ready when others weren't. That's the mindset of a master. Preparation gives you confidence without arrogance, focus without emotion, and timing without hesitation. So, the next time someone calls success luck, remember Takashi Kotegawa, the man who turned a random error into calculated triumph. His story proves that fortune doesn't favor the lucky, it favors the prepared. Because luck may knock once, but preparation is what builds the door, keeps it open, and walks through it when opportunity finally arrives. Discipline is the invisible bridge between chaos and success. It's what keeps your hands steady when the world shakes. It's what transforms panic into patience and disaster into destiny. For Takashi Kotegawa, discipline wasn't a choice. It was a way of life. It was the silent code that governed his every decision, every trade, every breath in front of those glowing screens. When Japan's a 20 million trading error unleashed mayhem on the market, Kotegawa's discipline became his armor. While others were crushed by confusion, he was guided by structure. His decisions weren't emotional reactions. They were the outcome of years of self-control and mental training. In the stock market, the line between destruction and destiny is razor thin. Most traders cross it without realizing, swinging wildly between fear and greed. But Kotegawa understood that discipline is the only force that can hold you in balance. He lived by rules he refused to break, even when breaking them could promise quick profit. To him, consistency was more valuable than excitement. His trades were not acts of chance, but acts of order, deliberate, measured, and emotionless. That's why, when the market imploded, he didn't crumble with it. He acted with the same precision he practiced in calm days, proving that real discipline doesn't vanish in crisis, it deepens. Discipline is tested when things fall apart. Anyone can follow a plan when the market is steady, But when everything turns red, when news channels scream panic and logic evaporates, that's when discipline becomes power. Kotegawa didn't flinch because he had already fought his battles long before that day. Not against the market, but against himself. Every morning, every loss, every late night study session had trained him to obey reason over emotion. He had conditioned himself to trust structure, not sensation. His approach was almost military in its precision. He would set clear entry and exit points, calculate his risk, and never move beyond what he could control. If a trade went against him, he didn't curse the market. He studied his own error. If a trade succeeded, he didn't celebrate. He refined his method. That's what discipline looks like. The ability to treat success and failure with the same calm detachment. Kotegawa never allowed emotions to dictate his rhythm, because he knew that once you lose rhythm, you lose reason, and the market punishes that faster than anything else. On the day of the Mizuho mistake, chaos consumed every trader in Tokyo. Stocks plunged in seconds, fear devoured logic, and people sold just to escape the noise. Kotegawa did the opposite. He didn't just react, he followed his system. His discipline told him that moments of maximum panic often produce maximum opportunity. While others were trying to make sense of the disaster, he was already executing his plan, buying into fear, trusting his analysis, maintaining control. That is what discipline truly means, trusting your preparation when your emotions beg you not to. Many traders think discipline is just about following rules. But for Kotegawa, it was spiritual. It was the inner code that protected him from greed, fear, and ego, the three poisons of every investor. After his immense success, when he became a millionaire almost overnight, he didn't change his lifestyle. He still lived modestly, ate cheap food, and spent his days studying charts. Why? Because discipline doesn't end with success. It must continue after it. He knew that the same discipline that created his fortune was the only thing that could preserve it. That's what separates legends from lucky men. Luck fades. Discipline endures. The market rewards those who stay consistent when others chase shortcuts. Kotegawa's fortune didn't come from a miracle. It came from a lifetime of small, disciplined acts that aligned perfectly when disaster struck. Every bit of control he practiced in ordinary moments prepared him for the extraordinary one. His story teaches us that destiny isn't found in the moment of crisis. It's forged in the habits you build long before the crisis arrives. Discipline is the quiet commitment to do what's right, not what's easy. It's staying focused when others are distracted, calm when others panic, and patient when others rush. That's how disaster transforms into destiny, not by chance, but by consistency. In the end, Takashi Kotegawa's greatest victory wasn't his wealth, it was his control. The world remembers the 20 million mistake. But what truly mattered was how one man's discipline turned it into triumph. He proved that no matter how chaotic life becomes, if you can control yourself, you can control the outcome. Because in markets, as in life, disaster only destroys the undisciplined. The rest use it to build their destiny. And so, in the aftermath of panic and error, when the noise of the market faded and the dust finally settled, one truth stood shining above the wreckage. Success doesn't belong to the lucky, it belongs to the disciplined. Takashi Kotegawa didn't just make millions, he made mastery visible. He showed the world that even in a storm of fear and chaos, a steady hand can rewrite the outcome. The 20 million mistake was not just a financial blunder. It was a mirror reflecting the psychology of every trader, every dreamer, every human being who faces uncertainty. Most saw destruction. Kotegawa saw design. Most reacted to fear. He responded with focus. Most blamed chance. He credited preparation. His story isn't about a single trade. It's about a mindset. The mindset that doesn't break when the system does. The mindset that stays calm when screens bleed red. The mindset that turns disaster into destiny. So when life throws its own market error your way, when the world panics, when opportunities hide behind confusion, when everything feels uncertain, remember Kotegawa. Remember the man who stayed calm when millions screamed. The man who turned chaos into calculation. The man who turned one of Japan's biggest mistakes into his life's greatest victory. Because in the end, it's not about the money you make, but the mind you master. And those who master themselves, like Kotegawa did, can turn even the biggest mistake in the world into a moment of history. Discipline made him rich, but control made him immortal.